So yeah, they broke up the hottest act in the company. They pulled the trigger. One of the most memorable closing angles in Raw history. Not the best or anything like that, but it was shocking. People are still talking about it. It's not even a week later. It got a lot of people talking, which is probably what they wanted. It was unpredictable, which isn't something you can say about much in wrestling these days, thanks to the internet and thanks to bad booking. But this wasn't bad. It was sad, but it wasn't bad. People definitely did not want to see it. You could actually hear a fan scream no just before Rollins whacked Reigns with the chair. Actually, I could do an even better impression of what the guy sounded like. He pretty much sounded like this. No! Like Reigns was about to take a bullet. Like if the guy could, he would jump in front of that chair. You know, like one of the Secret Service agents protecting the president or something. But the guy said out loud exactly what I was thinking when I watched it. You know, I'm still in mourning over this whole thing. I wouldn't have done it. Myself, would not have done it. I would not have turned the Shield against each other. I would not have broken them up. I still think there's money in keeping those guys together for a little while longer, but they did it, and it was a hot angle. The only thing that would have made it better and left more of a lasting impact was Jim Ross on commentary. When somebody would turn and do something dastardly like this back in the day, nobody sold it better than JR, and I thought the announcers did a poor job on this. It just was too subdued, and it didn't have the same impact, and the announcing can play such an important role in remembering an angle like this, or just selling how big of a deal and how much of an asshole this guy really is for what he did. So I thought it was lacking. That was one of those moments that JR would have been perfect still being in the announce booth. What made the Shield so great now, I guess as we look back and we reflect on the last 18 months of these guys together on the main roster, what differentiated them from so many other groups is that there was no clear, distinct leader. You know, they were all equals. It was usually Rollins or Reigns. You know, Ambrose was kind of the loose cannon, but he had his time to shine too on occasion. Sometimes during promos, he would kind of dominate and take that leadership role. With the Horsemen, it was always, you know, Ric Flair. It was never a question of who the head guy, who the leader of the Four Horsemen was. Through all the different incarnations of the Horsemen, the one constant was Ric Flair. He was the guy. With the Freebirds, it was Michael Hayes. With the NWO, it was Hulk Hogan. With DX, it was Shawn Michaels, and then when he went away, it was Triple H. He took over the leadership role. With the Hart Foundation, it was Bret Hart. With the Ministry, it was The Undertaker. Evolution, again, it was Hunter. With the Shield, all three guys were on equal footing. And each made the other one better. Between that and the run that they had, I know this, you know, again, was only 18 months, but by today's standards, that's like 5 years. The fact that they kept these guys together for that long before breaking them up, as well as they were booked, almost always in main events, elevating everybody else's game that they worked with, never having a bad match, getting over as babyfaces after their heel run came to an end. In my opinion, the Shield's going to go down as one of the greatest groups of all time, bar none. Easily one of the greatest factions of all time. When I say one of the greatest, I'm talking like, I can't say number one, I won't say number one, but top three. All time. Their wars with the Wyatts, their wars with Evolution, their battles with Bryan, their battles with Punk, working with The Undertaker at a time when Undertaker doesn't do much other than his once annual WrestleMania match. Okay, and he actually worked a 6-man tag on Raw and a singles match on SmackDown against Dean Ambrose. When was the last time you saw Undertaker work a match on SmackDown? Veteran guys wanted to work with these guys because they were that good. The Outlaws at WrestleMania this year, right? So it's a sad day that these guys are no more. As for an explanation for why, for this to make sense, Mitch on Twitter had maybe the best answer. He said the simple answer is the Shield were mercenaries for hire. Rollins took a job and I guess saw the other two as being weak. I see people thinking, or maybe it's more like hoping that this is some giant swerve. The problem with this being a double swerve, or Rollins being a secret agent, is that it makes no sense. These guys, the Shield and Evolution, they beat the crap out of each other. 2 straight pay-per-views, not to mention all the Raws and the SmackDowns in between that built up the pay-per-views. Okay, Rollins dove off a balcony at Extreme Rules onto those guys. Triple H and Randy Orton, he dove off the Titantron onto them at Payback. I think it was Rollins. He ate a pedigree on a steel chair on the stage last Sunday. Him turning doesn't make much sense as it is, but at least you could argue, okay, Triple H promised him a title shot. He promised him a bunch of money. He was tired of being overlooked as the architect of the Shield. Reigns is the muscle. He's looked at as the chosen one. He feels he gets no respect. You could at least rationalize it, and that may be what they end up doing. But if after all that, plus the beatdown on Ambrose and Reigns on Monday night, if Rollins really is still in cahoots with them and he joined Evolution to destroy Evolution from within, what is there to destroy? They've beaten them on 2 straight pay-per-views. Batista quit in the first segment of the show, so Evolution was down to 2 guys. I mean, what are they infiltrating exactly? The COO? I mean, what, are they going to oust him from power somehow? You know, when the old Stone Cold came back, remember that whole angle? He came back to lead Team WWF against the Alliance, and then he turned on them at the Invasion pay-per-view. That actually made sense. Vince begged Austin to come back and save his company from the Invaders. Austin did, but not really. He just suckered McMahon so he could cost them that big main event at the pay-per-view, and then lead the charge against the WWF. What big match is brewing between Evolution and the Shield that Rollins needs to infiltrate? Now, if this happened, let's say, between Extreme Rules and Payback, that actually would kind of make sense. You know, but again, they've already fought twice. Believe me, I would love nothing more than for this to somehow all make sense, and in 2 months the Shield is back together, you know, and each guy starts branching off on their own as singles, but they kind of maintain their partnership, they maintain their friendship. Because the real money is in these guys as singles in the future. Okay, I know that. But I would love for it to be a ruse. It's just too far-fetched for me. Now, that said, let's talk about Seth Rollins here for a second. This is a big opportunity for Seth Rollins. And I am looking forward to seeing how serious they really are about pushing him as a heel. He was always, up until recently, he was always looked at as the odd man out because Ambrose is this crazy loose cannon, Brian Pillman, Roddy Piper hybrid. He's going to be just fine. And Reigns is big and he looks good and he's got big muscles and he's being positioned as the next top guy to replace John Cena. And that may all be true. But then Rollins kind of got the shaft. Like, oh, he's a good bumper, he's a good wrestler, he's a good hand. But, you know, of all three, in a lot of people's eyes, Rollins was the one guy who maybe he wouldn't be a world champion or maybe he wouldn't get over the way the other two did. And I think the last few months, the way that they've let him shine, he's proved a lot of people wrong. He's changed people's opinions on that. So now he's the one who gets the first shot to branch out on his own in a serious role as a singles guy, as a heel. I still think his future is as a babyface. He had the best babyface comeback in all of WWE. Bryan used to, but Rollins had it now. And now that's gone. I'm not saying he can't be a good heel. He can certainly, you know, he can bump around for people, which you have to do when you're a bad guy. But they're putting him in Evolution. If he is in Evolution, we're just assuming he is. Maybe he took whatever Triple H offered him just to break away and beat the crap out of his friends. But are they aligning him with Hunter and Orton because they see him as the next big thing? You know, that's the question. All 3 members of the Shield could be world champions at some point. You know, are we going to see Bryan versus Rollins? I mean, sign me up. That'd be a hell of a match. Rollins could probably give John Cena some of the best matches of his career, but I don't want to see Rollins and Cena. That's the problem with being a heel in WWE. At some point, they all crash into the brick wall called John Cena. And as we've seen before with everybody, pretty much except Daniel Bryan so far, there's no going through that wall when you hit it. So I'm very curious how they handle this. The key is in the follow-up. I saw the Rollins stuff on SmackDown. He came out with Triple H. He cut a promo, but he didn't reveal why he turned. It was kind of a cop-out answer. Maybe they're saving it for Monday night because that's the Ace show. He had a match with Dolph Ziggler that was actually pretty damn good. And they gave Ziggler a lot more, I will say, in that match than I thought they would. But in the end, Rollins got the win, curb stomp, got the pin. They didn't do much more than that. But the key is in the follow-up. Do they see this guy as the next big thing, and are they going to push him like that? And is he going to get the rub from rubbing shoulders with Triple H and Randy Orton? Or is he just going to be a lackey and play second fiddle to Triple H? Are they going to make him, you know, cut his hair and put him in a suit so he looks just like every other, guy on the roster when they turn heel. Like, the key is how they handle it. Give the guy his own distinct identity. I have no problem if they want to keep him in his Shield gear for a while. Eventually he'll have to transition over to, like, normal tights, but let him stay in the flak jacket. Let him wear the gloves. Let him keep, one half of his head blonde and the other half brown. Let him maintain his own identity, but don't make it where he's just Triple H's lapdog. Because the minute you do that, the guy's dead.